I think the best part about sports writing is that it is all about stories. It's just ultimately storytelling about the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat and everything in between. Um, it's really, in my view, it's the gift that keeps on giving because there's a new storyline every game, every night, every sport, every season, and there's always a beginning, a middle, and an end. There really lots of the thing that the whole idea of the hero's journey, which takes you through that kind of build up, and there's always a climax of some sort. There's a trial and tribulation. All of that's apparent in sports. It's, as I said before, it's the ultimate reality show. So, if you think about all the things that appealed to people about reality shows, we have that in sport. So game stories are going to be kind of the foundation of what you do. You're going to be writing quite a bit, and they're challenging more than you'd think because you do need to come up with something different every night, and you don't want to be writing the same story over and over again. So we're going to talk a lot in this module about how to write more interesting game stories and kind of the model that I follow at the Associated Press, and we're going to bring in some other writers to talk about what they do. Now, looking at some less covered sports is a way for us to get even more kind of engagement with that storytelling. So I want you to think about some of the sports on campus that don't get as much traffic and as much coverage. And so maybe we can try to bring attention to some of the great stories there. Crazy things happen in sports, wild, wacky things, and even in more conventional sports, basketball, football, the things that we'd expect, crazy things happen. But in other sports that we don't necessarily know much about, even crazier things may happen. So, that's the thing we really want to keep our eye out on to report on. Fundamentally, though, athletes are amazing people. They're so interesting, and they all have a story to tell about how they got to be where they are. And if they're going to be competing at any level, from varsity athletes in high school all the way up through Division I, as we're doing here, into the pros, to be that good an athlete, you have a story to tell, and that's what we need to find. We also need to find what they're doing that's interesting. Here's some stories, just some examples about issues that are interesting. This talks about unhealthy eating practices in relation to athletics. That's certainly a story that we could be looking at localizing here. It has inherent conflict, so the idea of the distractions. Think about the distractions that you must face as an athlete on a field or on a stage. Think about the conflict related to concussion or other stories like that that's inherent to this. So you'll notice some of these are the news values we've always talked about. Athletes make mistakes. I'm sure you might recognize this person, which is J.T. Barrett, who made an unfortunate mistake that many other people might make, but it becomes front page news when they do it. And those are stories we need to cover too. Stories live in numbers. So, this is just some data about Ohio State athletics, and I want you to think about, just 225 hours of private jet times was allotted to Jim Tressel for recruiting trips when this graph was pulled. Think about what kind of story you could do about who manages those planes, what goes into managing those planes. There's a lot of things that you can do. And think about the data that we have at our disposal. Stories live in data, and the more that we can start to investigate the data that surrounds our sports, the more likely we are to grab some great stories out of them.